Rivers County Board of Commissioners meeting for Wednesday, July 3rd at 8 a.m. First order of business is the opening ceremonies. Invocation today is myself, so I'll lead us in a short prayer, and then we'll follow that with a pledge. Father in heaven, we just pray your guidance on this meeting today. Just help us to be mindful of the reason we're here, to serve our community, and we're thankful for all of the employees, the staff. We thank you and ask your blessing upon our law enforcement, our fire service, the EMS, Lord. Just pray that you continue to keep our community safe, help it to grow and flourish. In Christ's name I pray, amen. Please join me in the pledge.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. I think we're ready for the roll call, please.
LaPointe,
Present.
Klaus,
Here.
Wheelock,
Yes, ma'am.
Jewett,
Here.
Hunley,
Here.
Kofia, Henschel.
Here. All right, we have a quorum. Next order is the approval of the minutes for June 19th, 2019 regular meeting.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve the minutes as mailed.
Support.
Moved by Wheelock, supported by Jewett. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have first public comment. Would you please read the rules?
Any person shall be permitted to address a meeting of the Board of Commissioners which is required to be open to the public under the provisions of the Michigan Open Meetings Act. Public comment shall be carried out in accordance with the following board rules and procedures. Any person wishing to address the board shall state his or her name and address. No person shall be allowed to speak more than once on the same matter, excluding time needed to answer commissioners' questions, if any. The chairperson shall control the amount of time each person shall be allowed to speak, which shall not exceed 3 minutes. The chairperson may, at his or her discretion, allow an additional opportunity or time to speak if determined germane and necessary to the discussion. Public comment will be solicited during the 2 public comment periods noted in Rule 5.4 Order of Business. However, public comment may be received during the meeting when a specific agenda topic is scheduled for discussion by the board. Prior to the first public comment, the chairperson will indicate the topics on the agenda for which public comment will be accepted. Members of the public wishing to comment should raise their hand or pass a note to the clerk in order to be recognized and shall not address the board until called upon by the chairperson. Please be respectful and refrain from personal or political attacks.
Okay, and if anyone intends to remove something from the consent calendar, we do offer that to the public if they'd like to hear a better explanation. But if you want to make a comment on that item, now is your time to do that. So would anyone care to make a public comment? Separate up. Going once? Nobody's moving? All right. We will move on the agenda then. Next item is approval of the agenda. Does anyone have any issues? Okay.
I move we accept the agenda.
Yep.
Support.
Moved by Hundley, supported by Klaus. Any discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, we have our agenda. Next on the agenda is the consent calendar. Could you please read that?
The purpose of the consent calendar is to expedite business by grouping non-controversial items together to be dealt with by one commission motion without discussion. Any member of the commission staff or the public may ask that any item on the consent calendar be removed and placed elsewhere on the agenda for full discussion. Such requests will be automatically respected. If any item is not removed from the consent calendar, the action noted, receive and file, or approval, is approved by a single commission action adopting the consent calendar. A, receive. Number 1, Airport Governance Advisory Committee meeting of April 30th. Number 2, Airport Governance Advisory Committee meeting of May 28th. Number 3, Airport Commission regular meeting of May 28th. B, approvals. Number 1, Area Agency on Aging fiscal year 2020 to 2022 multi-year plan and Area Agency on Aging annual report. Number 2, Grand Traverse Sheriff's Office property room surplus. Number 3, fiscal year 2019 budget amendments. Number 4, appointments for consideration. Number 5, jail security electronics maintenance service agreement renewal.
Okay. Would any members of the board like to have anything removed from the consent calendar for discussion? Commissioner LaPointe.
Yes, B1A and B3, please.
Okay, anybody else? Okay, seeing none. Would any members of the public like anything removed from the consent calendar? Okay, seeing none. We have a motion to approve the consent calendar.
Motion to approve the consent calendar. Support.
Moved by Jewett, supported by Klaus. Any further discussion? Roll call vote, please.
Klaus?
Yes.
Wheelock?
Yes.
Jewett?
Yes.
Hunley?
Yes.
Kofia? Yes. Lapointe?
Yes.
Henschel?
Yes. Okay, motion passes. Now we're on to item 8, items removed from the consent calendar. Item B1A, Area Agency on Aging Annual Report, page 113 in your packet. Commissioner Lapointe.
Yes, I just have I don't know if there's anybody here from that organization. But a question
I'm Cindy Kinlan with the Commission on Aging. I'm not from Area on Aging.
Okay.
I just reviewed the report. So
Okay.
hopefully I could try to answer your question.
Okay. I'm aware of the Commission on Aging and the funding from the millage, et cetera. And so when I went through this, to be honest with you, I wasn't aware there was also an area agency that covers, I guess, 10 counties. That
correct.
kind of is an umbrella organization over the others.
Correct.
A simple question. On page 113, there's an area agency on aging funding report, and it shows Grand Traverse dollars. Now, do those funds, are those the funds that you get in your organization, or is this additional funding that goes to the umbrella?
Yeah, I'm not aware of the exact part that you're looking at, but we do provide funds for them. That's actually required by the state.
Okay, so
So
because
we do
there's a
provide them
column
with
there.
funds, and then they also bill Medicaid and Medicare. So
Right.
we actually, Commission on Aging provides services for the Area on Aging. That
Okay,
makes
I
sense.
guess the question is, there's a total here of $798,000 that is Grand Traverse dollars. So that's money that comes out of our general fund budget, I assume, and goes to that agency?
I think part of it's it's funded from the state, our dollars. So
Okay.
the money that comes from us is not anywhere near that.
Might be a good question for Dean.
Yeah,
Those are not our dollars
yeah.
that are reported.
It's-
So it says Grand Traverse dollars, it's
So
not
for-
our,
Oh, we provide a very small amount. I don't remember the exact number.
okay. So we're not,
offhand, but- And then the state provides the rest. So they require us to provide so much, and then the state does fund the rest of it.
okay, I guess I just would come back to this kind of same question when they come up with our allocation versus our partner's allocation, make sure we're getting a fair percentage that we're contributing for the services that we receive in Grand Traverse County, is my only point. Kind of goes along with some other organizations, but I'm sure when we get to the budget, we'll come up with more information on it. Thank you.
Okay, sure.
Okay. And it looks like this is an approval item, so do we have a motion to approve?
Motion to approve.
Support.
Okay. Moved by Lapointe, supported by Jewett. Any discussion? All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Motion carries. And then we are on item B3, fiscal year 2019 budget amendments, on page 118 in your packet. Commissioner Lapointe.
I have a question on one of the documents in there, page 123, which is budget adjustment request. And I know the format that we usually do for the various departments. This one was different. I'm not sure what this is.
That's the form that we use internally. It's the form that the department uses. What we'll do then, in most cases, and we did not do it with that one, we would summarize it in the other format. It was just easier. It's a adjustment for the indirect cost, but it's the format that the departments use to make budget requests. And then usually what we do is we put it in the other format that you see for the other 4 budget amendments that are presented.
So this isn't for a specific department then?
It's for the Commission on Aging Fund 297.
Oh, This is the,
Yeah, correct. That's the budget adjustment form that we use internally.
okay.
We just, and rather than retype and rekey that information and create the other form that you have for the other 4 adjustments, we just included that
Okay,
one.
because there was no name on there, what department it
Okay,
was.
it's the Commission on Aging
Okay.
Fund.
Okay, thank you.
I apologize for that. That's a miss on my part.
Okay, you good?
Yep.
Okay, so we need a motion to approve the fiscal year 2019 budget amendments.
So move.
Support?
Moved by Lapointe, supported by Hundley. Any further discussion? All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, we are on to item 9, departmental items. Item A, Grand Traverse Sheriff's Office. 1, approval of contract with Green Lake Township for community police officer, page 132 in your packet. Would you like to say anything or see what questions arise?
Good morning, Tom Bensley, Grand Traverse County Sheriff's Office. Some time ago, Supervisor Radke approached us and talked about a community police officer for Green Lake Township in discussions with the county administrator. We all agreed this was a good thing for the county and are asking for your approval. It's not any different than any of the other contracts that we've had for other townships with community police officers for many, many years. If you have any questions, we're happy to answer those questions.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve the community policing officer contract with Green Lake Township and Grand Traverse Sheriff's Office.
Support.
Moved by Wheelock, supported by Klaus. Any discussion?
I guess the point that I would make, Green Lake Township has a little bit of a unique situation in that the National Music Camp is there. And the Interlochen Center for the Arts does require a certain amount of policing. They are a participant in this contract in that they're helping to pay for it. I think if we look at run counts, we'll find that we make a lot of trips there during a year, and I'm very pleased to see them step to the plate and help us provide additional policing to make sure their campus and the rest of Green Lake Township stay safe.
Commissioner Kafia.
Yeah, Sheriff Bensley, good morning. I was wondering if you could just speak, I think I have a grasp of the difference between sort of a general officer from your department who is patrolling the whole county versus a community police officer who is specific to a township, but just for the benefit of this discussion, could you talk about the difference between the two? The relationships that they maybe have differently with this specific community?
That officer, the community police officer, works in that township, Green Lake Township, Peninsula Township, East Bay, or Acme Township. They're assigned to work in those townships. And they are there so that they are able to handle any situation that comes up in that township when they're on duty. They work very closely with the township administrative staff. Typically, it's the supervisor. The supervisors get calls from constituents about certain areas that there's problems or difficulties. They're there to meet with the business owners and be in the community, build that relationship between the police officers and the community. It's been very successful. It's been a very successful program over the years with the townships. Acme Township Supervisor Jay Zollinger will tell you, I have the best community police officer in my township. Beth Friend from East Bay Township will tell you, I have the best 2 community police officers in the program. That speaks to the relationship that has been built with the townships. They are there as a police officer. They can respond to calls, take accidents, but they have a very flexible schedule, and they show up at community events and are there for outreach with the community.
Thank you.
Yep. I'll point out that East Bay does have the best, too, in the program. Commissioner Lapointe.
I just have a question. I'm aware, I've worked with your officer in Acme, and he is the best.
There will be an arm wrestling.
I could tell you a traffic story, but I'm not going to. One of the things, one of the charts here lists the 10 townships that have community police officers. In Garfield, it shows us 3 deputies. I was under the impression Garfield had
12?
a much larger number. I kept hearing that in Acme.
Yes, they do. Currently now, Garfield, with the addition of one in January, has 4 community police officers. But Garfield also provides funding for 8 additional officers who are not community police officers. They go on our regular schedule. There are officers in Garfield that they pay for 24 hours a day. So they are on our regular schedule with the other officers that work general county patrol functions.
Okay.
So they have 8 police officers that they fund that work on the midnight shift, day shift, afternoon shift, and then a shift that runs late afternoon until midnight. So those people are there, and yes, they do fund those officers in addition to the CPOs.
Okay, thank you.
Sort of an anecdotal story. I was at a forensic interview of a child at the Children's Advocacy Center the other day. And at the end of the interview, the interviewer asked the child, is there somebody that you can talk to that you feel safe and you trust? And the very first person she mentioned was the community police officer. Before her parents, she mentioned the community police officer. And that speaks volumes about the relationships that these officers can build by being in the elementary school, by being in the community, by being at the park.
Okay. This was in the ticker this morning. Beth Milligan did a very informative article. So if anyone in the public wants to know more about the program, there's an article out there this morning. Are we ready to vote?
Well, just one other quick question, which was, it certainly seems like a good thing all around, and Green Lake deserves, community officers as much as any of the other townships. But I just did have a question about one of the graphs that you had included in the thing was calls for service over the last 4 years, and it looked like it's been, pretty steady, maybe even down a little bit in 2018. And so, I'm not trying to, I guess I just wanted to find out a little bit more about like what the trend has been, the need. Have we been flying for way too long without, and now we're trying to rectify it, or,
I think Captain Clark, who prepared that presentation, could speak to that, but I do know that when we're talking about calls for services, there are some things that we have pared back because of our staffing, and he can address what those calls for services are, and basically it's everything we do. Okay, and that fluctuates a little bit because of our staffing levels. It includes, calls for service, response to complaints, traffic stops, things of that nature. And so it does fluctuate a little bit depending on the staffing level. And, we really don't control what we're going to do. Other people, say, well, I've got a problem here. I need you to come and help us out. So.
Okay. So it's not being.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, well, so it's not being driven by like a rise in crime in Green Lake. It's just we're trying to get into the community and build the relationships. And
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Ready to vote? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much for coming.
Thanks, Marv.
And Marv Radke, thanks for being here.
Yep.
All right, moving on to item 9B, Administration and Finance, Boardman River floodplain mapping, page 140 in your packet.
This would be a request to have the floodplain maps redone based on the removal of both the Boardman and the Sabin Dam. This was something that was discussed at the implementation team meetings last fall. I did have one call earlier this year from a citizen that lives in that area asking the county to do this because of the cost of her flood insurance. I will not mention the individual's names, but she does live in that area, and she shared with me that her cost for flood insurance was about $900, and she could avoid that cost if we revised our maps. I had requested AECom, who has been a partner with us on both of our dam removals, to provide the proposal, which is in your packet. This was not bid out, but I thought that it would be very hard for me to write a proposal because I don't understand what floodplain maps are and what would be required for that project. So I asked Dan Devon with AECom if his firm would be able to do that work, and he said that they were. And that's indicated very clearly, I think, in the proposal. The thing that I liked about their proposal was the fact that they will make sure that FEMA, which is a very important part of this process, they have to accept the maps for them to be used for insurance purposes. I did ask Greg Bird to be here in case you had, this is way out of my area of expertise. I did review the proposal, so as did Chris Forsyth. It appears to be the scope of work that we need to do, but again, I'm being totally honest, I don't understand this, but I do, we have a very good working relationship with AECom as part of our dam removal. Chris Forsyth knows the engineer who will be working on this, Jason Plum. They have a relationship outside of work as well. So I'm comfortable with that, but if you have any technical questions, I'm hoping that Greg, I feel this is something that we need to do. The county took out the dams. I've had one citizen that's called and said, please, you need to have these floodplain maps revised so that we can get lower insurance for our property. So with that, I'll
Okay.
try to answer any questions you have.
Commissioner Wheelock.
Mr. Chairman, I would move to approve the contract between Grand Traverse County and AECom in the amount of $18,800 to perform the services of providing new floodplain maps for Grand Traverse County.
Support.
Moved by Wheelock, supported by Klaus. Commissioner Wheelock.
I think we have to recognize that with the removal of the dams, the location of the water, the wetlands have significantly changed in Grand Traverse County. And it's not fair to our citizens to, have the floodplain maps drawn on based where their water isn't anymore. It's just not, it's not fair to do that. $18,800, I'm sure it's not a budgeted amount, although I think overall it's going to benefit the citizens of this community. It's pretty obvious that our decision to remove the dams changed where the water was. So we should be responsible to, readdress the maps, and this is a professional service. We could go lean on Jim down in our GIS department and say, can you redo this? But this is professional engineering that needs to go in place, because we can draw the map, we can put a line on a map and say this is where the floodplain is, but if we don't have the engineering to back it up, FEMA's never going to support it. So we might as well make sure it's done correctly. And we have a good relationship, I believe, with AECom. It makes sense to have them perform this work.
Okay. Commissioner Jewett.
No, I was just looking here, but I'd seen the writing down here now where it said not to exceed 18,008, so I was just, it's not really a contract, it's just a time and material type thing, but not to exceed, so we're good.
Okay. Commissioner LaPointe.
It says in here that it was included in the budget. What budget was that in?
In our facilities fund, we have a Department 765, which is specifically for the Boardman River Dam removal. I did budget funds for this. I budgeted $30,000, not knowing, I had no idea what this would cost, but that also was a budgeted amount to cover the contract that was just approved with CRA. So this is in the facilities fund budget, which is supported by an appropriation from the general fund. So it is in the budget
Okay,
to
thank
cover
you.
this.
Okay. Any other questions or discussion? All right. I think we're ready to vote. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Dean.
Well, thank you.
All right. We are on unfinished business, item 10A. Human Resources, Policies and Procedures, page 146 in your packet. Would you like to tee off?
This was brought to you previously at the meeting 2 weeks ago, and there was a request to have some additional time to review the policies, which was completely appropriate. We are still want to have these policies approved as soon as possible. So Donna is here to address any questions that you may have about the policy specifically. But we are seeking approval for the policies as presented.
Okay.
I move that, oh,
I move to approve the updated policies
Okay.
as presented.
support.
Okay. Moved by Klaus, supported by Hundley. Any further discussion? Commissioner Kafia.
I have some questions for Donna and for the administration in reading through those new policies. So starting with, and I used the comment function on this Google Docs. I'm trying to find the one that addresses Americans with Disability policy for starters.
ADA?
Yeah, ADA, so page 151. The question that I have on that one, if I can get my iPad to function properly, just disappeared in my notes. So I wondered if we have, there's a lot of discussion about making our facilities accessible for our employees. But I was curious particularly about restrooms and handicap accessible buttons. Do we have those anywhere in this building? Has that, in any of our buildings, has that been looked at?
We do not have those, but definitely our bathrooms throughout the building are definitely ADA compliant. You can put a wheelchair in any of these restrooms.
Okay.
So, but we don't have the button.
So they would have to figure out how to pull and, right, and they're heavy
Yeah.
doors. Okay, has there been any discussion of looking at making our bathroom doors, having the buttons so that they're actually more accessible to folks perhaps in wheelchairs or in other?
I don't know that we've talked about that specifically, but we've talked about the general idea that we have some ADA compliance issues and some concerns specific to this building and all of our buildings. We're trying to become compliant. I don't know if the bathroom has been discussed exactly in the way you
Chris
described it.
Forsythe has looked into that as well. It is definitely something he's been looking at.
And where has that gone? Is there a report forthcoming? Like, where are we at with looking
Well-
at bringing ourselves more into compliance?
Currently, Joe Berry and Mr. Forsythe are engaged in the building audit, the facilities audit, and we're expecting that that would come as part of that discussion
Okay,
that's directed by this board.
great.
Okay.
Thank you.
Anything else?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yeah, I'm going through all of the policies. So, let's see. This would be page 202. So this is under, it's very clunky scrolling back and forth. This has to do with disciplinary action with employees. So page 202, there's a mention under number 1 of page 202 about a verbal warning. An employee will be given a verbal warning when a problem is identified that justifies a verbal warning, or the employee engages in unacceptable behavior. And the part I had a question about is, it says verbal warnings may be documented and placed in the employee's personnel file. If that were to happen, is the employee notified that there's
Yes,
been?
actually, when we actually do a verbal warning, and it's in the actual contracts that we do, the union contracts, they are absolutely aware of what's going on, and we actually sit down and talk with the employee at that time about the verbal warning. So, yeah, they're definitely aware if it does go into their personnel file.
Okay, great. Then I had a question on the mental health counseling, the EAP Employee Assistance Program. So let me get it to go there. That looks like it's page 213. It talks about employee assistance program that while the county encourages employees and their family members who think they may have a problem which is affecting their lives at home or at work to seek treatment, et cetera, and that there's some support. But I did notice that as opposed to vision support and dental, that's very spelled out with how much basically the county is willing to contribute for that particular health need, that the EAP program, it's not
totally-
specific at all, and I was
it's
wondering,
totally-
is it informed by the different bargaining units, or what's the?
It's actually totally free to the employees. We charge the employees nothing for the EAP program. And there's actually a sheet outside our office door that talks about the EAP program. And actually, at the beginning of this year, we actually started a new EAP company. And an email was sent out to all the employees on the new benefits of this new EAP program because it was enhanced compared to the ones that we've had in prior years.
Great. And so when you say it's free, is that up to a certain number of sessions or?
They, an employee that wants to go see the EAP does get a certain amount of free sessions per year.
And that's the part that I was looking for, the detail within this policy. So if somebody isn't sure where to go in a big, thick binder and is trying to figure out how to get the support they need, it's a sensitive issue, right? So asking questions can be harder. Can that language that actually delineates how many EAP sessions are available and more specificity, as is done with the dental and the vision, could that be added into this policy?
Absolutely.
And
We have all that
I don't
information.
know if I need a motion to make that happen, but it does seem important to me. Mental health is an important part of what we offer to our employees. So
Could you specify once for us so everyone understands what you're suggesting?
yes, so what I'm asking for is that in this particular policy on the employee assistance program, that we delineate specifics around the quantity, the number, right, of sessions that are available and what that entails, so that a person or their family can actually access those with a little more
Would the
ease.
motion maker and second be willing to put that in a friendly amendment?
I mean, I'll make that
Sure.
as a motion, and so.
Don't need
Well,
to.
Or, yeah, no, that's fine.
We can use a friendly amendment just to keep things moving.
Yeah,
So that's been added
I
to the
appreciate
motion on the floor.
Sounds good.
okay.
Okay. Are we, Mr.
Yes,
Bott?
I'm a little bit confused as to exactly, how that detail becomes part of the policy.
Because it's the part of the policy and all of the others that are specific to healthcare, like dental and vision, it goes into detail about this number of sessions at this, cost, right? And in this particular one, it's doesn't go into any detail whatsoever. And my point is, it's more sensitive to an employee to come to HR and say, hey, I would like to get some mental health care versus I just need some dental care, I need some vision. So I would like it to be here.
Okay.
Donna, how often does the provider change? So it says EAP services are currently provided by Mutual of Omaha.
How often do they change?
Yeah, how often do they change the number that will be accepted? Because the question ultimately is how often would we have to change our policy if they change, now you get 8 sessions instead of 7?
Usually it doesn't. The one that, the company that we had the year before had the same amount of sessions as we are offering this year. So it was a matchup, so nothing changed there. This company just actually offered more assistance for our employees if they offer like tapes and books and things like that you can use where the other company wasn't offering that. So it was actually an enhanced program.
And Donna, is my understanding of the template for EAP, if you would use the word template, there isn't a structure that says you get 2 or 3 visits free of charge. It's more of an all-encompassing, for the employee's health and wellness, you can go to EAP for an indefinite period of time.
Yes, but they do get 3 free sessions that they don't pay at all towards.
Then insurance would kick in for either the EAP or for outside support.
I do understand that, and I've encountered it at other places of employment, and I think the specificity here is helpful so that people, when they're trying to figure out finances and other pieces, that this is just one less hurdle that they have to jump to get the information they need.
I have no.
If HR doesn't feel like it's going to be a problem, I would love for us to go ahead and just
As
add
I
that detail.
keep saying, I want to make sure that we deliver, these policies haven't been updated in so long. I want to make sure that we are giving the employees the best possible policies. So I have no problem changing them. I've actually met with Nate, and we actually set up an agreement of how often we would now start reviewing these policies so that they do stay up to date.
And I very much appreciate that.
Yes, so we've already discussed that.
Okay. Anything else?
Yes, I have a couple more.
Go ahead. You have the floor.
So, was there anything else on this one? I'm sorry, before we move on.
I think it's a great idea. I'm glad you brought it up.
Thank you. So then on page, let me find, 222, it addresses the harassment policy. It's equal employment opportunity policy is what the name of the policy is, but the specific part that I'm curious about, under remedies, so it's the very last paragraph on page 222, violations of this policy, regardless of whether an actual law is violated, will not be tolerated. Grand Traverse County will promptly, thoroughly, and fairly investigate every issue that is brought to its attention in this area and will take disciplinary action when appropriate, up to and including in termination of employment. So my question is, and this is really maybe civil counsel can weigh in as well, what is the process if the harassment were actually to come from an elected or an appointed official who is not subject to disciplinary action up to and including termination? What would the investigation process look like? Who should someone go to if they were being harassed by an elected or an appointed official? And I'm implying nothing here, but I am trying to think about this broadly, that we can have the best policies, because I unfortunately have heard of this happening in the past at our and other municipalities. So what's the process if it were an elected or an appointed? How do we handle that?
There's nothing in this policy that I'm aware of that addresses that specifically. The person would obviously be free to go to their department head or to administration or to human resources, but that's not spelled out.
Right. And if it's an elected on this board, we hire we're the administrator's boss, and so the investigation process is almost immediately sort of, how do you investigate your boss?
If it's not a violation of the criminal law, I don't know that you'd get police involvement.
Right,
I'm
so
not sure
there's a gap between, if there's harassment that doesn't rise to the level of filing a criminal complaint, but something has gone wrong, or they feel something has gone wrong, what would the process be?
Are you looking for like an outside agency to be?
I'm looking
brought in?
for what is practice for municipalities. We all have elected officials of various types and appointed officials who do, you can't take disciplinary action up to and including termination, and so what does that look like? What would someone's recourse be?
When a complaint is filed against an elected official, our Human Resources Department or administration will be actually investigating that complaint. The complaint can be founded or not founded, but the reality is we can't discipline an elected official.
Right.
We can make it known that an investigation occurred. We can, pursuant to policy, either say that the violation was substantiated or not. Whether or not there's disciplinary action for the elected official, we can't do that.
And I do understand that. I'm just trying to understand, hopefully something like this would not happen here, but if it were, what is the process? Or do you have to kind of figure it out as you go because you're dealing with an elected or an appointed official? Is there a specific process that you step through to do the investigation?
Sure. Human Resources would do the investigation. We would run that investigation with whomever has to be spoken with underneath the elected official. The elected official would be involved in the process by knowing that there was a complaint filed, by knowing that an investigation was occurring, and then Human Resources or the administration would either say that the complaint is substantiated or not.
Does that have to be made public if that were the case, if it was substantiated?
Well, it's public by it's a governmental function. It's a public issue.
I don't know what FOIA exception would apply to it as far as the whole of it. There would certainly be there would quite possibly be parts that would not be disclosable.
I would think we'd send it to the governor if it was egregious enough, because the governor can.
The governor can.
Yeah, there's a situation downstate, I think, right now with an elected official where it has gotten to that point and they had to send it to the governor. Okay. So you said FOIA, but FOIA, you have to know that you need to FOIA, and if there isn't any sort of public-facing, this elected official has been charged with this and we found substantiated evidence that this has happened, then the public isn't going to know to FOIA.
The employee could. So I guess what I'm kind of getting at is we don't have a written policy which says if the alleged harasser is an elected official, then these are the steps that are gone through.
Right.
But there are state laws like FOIA and removal of elected officials that are in place.
Right. Again, at the end, though, not the process. And I'm trying to understand the process. And frankly, in terms of fairness for the person who has had the allegation against them as well. Like, what process is going to be followed to do such an investigation? It's much clearer for me for employees than it is for electeds and appointeds.
And when that policy was written, and I wrote it for employees and not necessarily directing it to elected officials. And it's something that, as elected officials, maybe you guys want to decide that you guys maybe need separate policies for stuff like that. The policies basically that I've rewritten are basically for employees.
Well, some
And
of them, though, right? I mean, we have some
yes.
that are both.
Yes.
Is there anything in place for elected and appointeds as pertains to harassment, either of employees or, in their function as an elected someone else from the public? Is there anything in place?
The practice of the investigation, the mechanics of the investigation would not change.
So it does apply to us, or it doesn't?
No, I'm saying the practice, the way that the investigation would occur with a complaint would not change if it's an elected official or not. The end result may change because we can't discipline an elected official. If an employee makes a complaint, let's just say sexual harassment, we have an obligation to investigate that complaint to a point of either substantiating or not substantiating the complaint. That will not change if it's an elected official or just a regular employee.
So even though this policy doesn't necessarily apply to elected and appointed, you're saying you would use that's what I thought I heard Donna say, is that this is written for employees,
It was written for
not.
employees, but if somebody made a complaint to me about one of the elected officials, I would definitely conduct an investigation into that. Depending on how serious it gets, I would obviously involve, Kit or Nate, and just so that we have when you do an investigation, you want other folks involved in that, as even when you're investigating or interviewing that person, you want to make sure you have a witness or somebody else with you so that you're getting the proper notes down.
So then I guess my question is, in the ethics policy which we've been working on for a bit now, we made a point to specifically include language around elected and appointed officials in addition to employees in that policy to be explicit. Is that an appropriate amendment to just specify here, so that if, God forbid, this would ever come up, we actually have a clear policy that says it applies to us too?
If I can actually add that
if you feel that is appropriate. I'm asking if you
looking
feel
at
that's appropriate.
legal for that, but I absolutely can add language.
Yeah, language could be added.
Yeah.
I think the thing is the policy is written so as the investigation is triggered when the complaint of harassment is initiated. So as soon as there's a complaint of harassment, there's an investigation taking place, and it's drawn out in the policy. And it doesn't make any difference who the harasser is. If there is harassment, we will investigate it, whether it's being done by a coworker, a supervisor, or an elected official. We will investigate the harassment complaint the same no matter what. What the disciplinary action is on the other end may have to be different, but the policy that says how we're going to investigate it stays the same.
Yes, that's absolutely correct. We would, same investigation.
I don't see that we'd necessarily solve the specific question. I do certainly see the problem of, investigating the person at the top of the chain and still being under, in that chain. So you can have the investigation and then it goes in a box and gets hidden away. I mean, I think that's the concern. So, and I don't know that we're going to necessarily resolve that today. I think the idea of including, maybe including the specific language about, electeds and the way it is in some of the other policies would be okay. It's just that then when it comes to the remedies, the up to and including termination of employment still is only going to pertain to, and I don't know. Yeah, I mean, the specific problem is you can have the investigation and then it's neither made public, and on the one hand, it's good because it's protecting one party, but it's I don't have the solution for it, but that is the problem, and I guess I don't think we should hold up getting these policies in place for that because they're late, and I appreciate that you've given us the extra couple weeks so that we can read them. And I myself, I only have one find and replace thing out of all of them. But it's valid and relevant. I don't have an answer for you, and I don't know that anybody else does here today. So I don't know. Other than adding the language so that it at least is clearly applicable to
up to the remedy, at least.
Other than the remedy.
As it reads now,
I have a quick question for staff regarding this. Do we have any elected officials who are not considered employees?
Yeah. The judges are their own employers.
Okay. And they're employees of the state of Michigan?
But they would be considered, even though they're an elected official, they're still also an employee of the county.
Okay, they're
I
like
mean, for payroll tax, for compensation.
co-employer with the state or
Yeah,
something like
So
that?
it's a term that
Okay, so they would,
catches all,
they would be subject to the policies as well.
to a
Well,
certain extent.
You should ask the judges that question. I think they have a different opinion.
Okay, so other than the
The
judges?
judges are paid by the state,
The judges will tell you they are their own employer. They're the court. They're not,
but they're paid by the state of Michigan, not by
Not,
the
not
Grand
all of
Traverse
them.
County.
We pay some of the judges' salaries.
Sorry to muddy the waters.
It is very muddy.
But other than the judges, everybody's an employee and subject to our policies, regardless of what recourses are available to us based on their elected status, right?
well, again, we're currently in discussions with the district court, my apologies, specific to what the state court administrator's office is telling them, and that they should have their own set of policies that mirror ours and are closely assimilated to ours, but not Grand Traverse County's policy. We're currently working with them through this process, but both Donna and I have had independent conversations with the court about their desire to do that, and I know that the court is in the process of constructing their own policies. So again, if you ask the courts if they are subject to our policies, I'm not going to guess what their answer would be.
So I can appreciate that we don't want to hold up this entire ream of policies over this question. I also believe it's a very important question. When you think about power dynamics and accountability, that it is important. And so I'm willing to just move on and approve it as is, but with the understanding I would like to work with Donna and see what is out there that helps us specifically address this potential abuse of power, because it has happened, it does happen. And I would prefer that we maybe not just have to be reactionary if we get in a situation where that were to happen here.
Certainly.
Okay? So we can
Yes.
move on with that one. Okay? I've like 3 more. And it's only 9:50, so just like to point out. 8:50, see?
I mean,
8:50.
Could be one for the record.
All right. Let me find where I am here. All right. So under the anti-harassment policy, which is on page 236, starting on page 236, similar questions. What do you do when the potential perpetrator or the person who is being accused is actually sort of at the top of the chain and the people who have to investigate are beneath? I'm curious what recourse that we have in those cases, and if you've found other municipalities that have found some sort of a solution to that dynamic.
Again, when it comes to an investigation, obviously, I've done them, and I've actually done them for CEOs. So, Nate, I hate to bring your name into this, but if it's truly somebody was making a harassment claim, a sexual, whatever it was against Nate, who is my boss,
Yep.
I would still perform that investigation, and at that point, I would make sure I would get outside counsel involved in that as well. So that it's not just me looking at the claim of harassment.
Okay, thank you. Is there sexual harassment training for employees, and what does that look like?
Yes, every employee, every new hire goes through a training. We actually have a tape when they first hire in. They actually watch a video, and then they actually are asked questions.
Is it one of those, I did it at NMC, is it one of those where you can't actually go through the screens until you answer the questions correctly?
Correct, yeah,
Okay.
and if you don't pass, then you have to redo it.
You have to redo it?
Yeah.
Okay. What about elected and appointed officials? Do we have any requirement that we do sexual harassment training?
You guys do not, but you are more than welcome to go through, we can put you through our training.
Would the board be open to a friendly amendment that, well, I believe that all elected and appointed officials should go through this training. And I'm not sure how we want to get there, but I'm willing to make a motion that happen. It may not belong in this space, but I wanted to make sure I was understanding whether this policy applies to us as well.
Absolutely, and all of you guys can go actually through the sexual harassment training.
Okay, so.
Or if you'd like, I can do a
think that would be an issue.
separate training for you guys as well. I've done lots of them, so I can actually put you through all you guys together, and I can actually do a training for you guys, if you'd like that, instead of the actual tape, I'm willing to do that as well.
I think that would be something that would be addressed more in the board rules
That's what I
than
was
in the
thinking.
county policies.
Okay. All right, so I'll come back with a suggested board rule that is built into our practices. Mhm. Okay.
Yeah, I think our elected official orientation overall could use a
Could
little
use some
polishing.
freshening up, yeah.
It's a lot to get your arms around.
And it could be done in, within the first 2 months or something like that. We could
Sonny
probably
does it in his
piecemeal
sleep
it.
now, but, yeah, I mean, you've done it so long, you know the.
Commissioner Coffey, may I add a little to this discussion
Certainly.
specific to the harassment policy, sexual harassment? There are civil remedies for this pursuant to 1983 suits as well. So this may be a little different in that there would be potential remedies against an elected official. If there was found to be a substantiated complaint, they could file a complaint with the EEOC or file a lawsuit pursuant to 1983.
Okay.
Commissioner Jewett, did you have a question? Okay.
And so with one last question on the sexual harassment policy specifically, I followed a lot of what happened with our United States military. We had members of the military reporting to the person who was then charged to investigate complaints. And unfortunately, there were documented cases where the investigator themselves was the person doing the harassing or even sexual assault. Again, not implying a single thing. However, in those cases, I continue to ask myself, what is the employee's recourse? If that were the case, what's the process and where is it, where an employee could look it up and say, here's what I have to do right now?
Right, let's say an employee was going to file a complaint against me.
The investigator
Right.
specifically, yeah.
They would definitely, they would go to Nate, so.
Would
that-
they know that? Is it written down anyplace?
It's probably not, but that's, how we would follow the process of HR. If somebody came into HR, they know that they could do it. The HR team's totally trained to do that, but they would definitely make sure that Nate was doing that.
Sure. And for me, again, this is similar to the EAP. You're in a it's a difficult situation for the employee. You're trying to figure out what your legal recourse is. You could be risking your job just by saying anything. And so if you don't have a clear process that you can hang on to and follow, that is adding an additional amount of stress and difficulty with something that's already very difficult. So I would like to see language that
Says it
states
is-
in the case of, there needs to be a spelled out process so that somebody has something legal to hang on to.
Okay.
If that were, I'm sure, again, God forbid, ever to happen, that feels appropriate to me. Is that language
Yeah.
that could be added in?
Is that something you could come back with?
I absolutely
Look
can.
into a procedure and bring it back to this board? Because we can edit any of these policies at any time.
Absolutely. I mean, we can go through and I can make, and we're going to, I think it's, I want with any kind of policy and procedure, it to be, I'm going to say, a wheel in motion. It should constantly be changing and updating so that we are, and I love the fact that you guys are looking at them and reading them because, and I've said this to Nick, I want to make sure that we put the best, and to Dean, that we put the best policies that we can out for the employees. It's not
I
about
agree.
me, or whatever. It's about the employees right now and making sure that they have something that they totally understand. So I have no problems going back and making corrections and changes. That's what I want to do so that
Yeah.
they're,
Yeah.
they spell out everything good, for the employees.
I really appreciate that intent, and I share it.
Uh-huh.
That is why I went to such length to try to think this through. Okay. So our next steps here, you're going to bring us back some added language around that. Does
Yep.
that need to be a formal motion?
I'm comfortable if you are.
It's fine with
Just
me.
an understanding
We'll
that,
keep- Yep, we'll keep going then.
something of a flow chart so employees know who to talk to and
Yep. Okay. All right. Last one. And this one is the 339, page 339. I believe it's under the whistleblower, yes, it's the whistleblower policy. On guidelines, let's see. So my question, it's very much along the same line, right? How do we protect our employees or a person who is in this situation if the people who are supposed to be trusted to take care of the situation are in fact involved? So That my specific question was, what would the process be if one of the people on the whistleblower committee was the person implicated in the complaint? Or if an elected official, commissioner, clerk, sheriff, prosecutor, whomever, was implicated? And specifically, I'm concerned about us, since we are the administrator's boss. So I'm curious about the process if someone on the whistleblower committee was actually the person having the whistle blown on them.
I would hope that with the committee, there's 3 of us, that person we would just take off and they would not get involved in that investigation. But if we needed to get another person involved, we could. And actually, I can tell you that probably my Whistleblower Act policy is more detailed than most of them that you will see out there. And I was actually told that by legal counsel, by Matt, so.
So you're not obligated with the people who are spelled out. You have specific roles spelled
Right.
out here as who's on the whistleblower committee.
I
but
did, but if it was somebody that they were, and Dean and Nate are on there with that committee, if it was against, they would not be involved in that.
So they couldn't use this policy to say, no, I have to be in this room because it says in the policy?
No, we would, I think that would be common sense, that we wouldn't have them involved in the actual process if it was against one of them.
I like to believe in common sense, but it's not always as common sometimes when things are difficult. So, okay. That was the question that I had on that one. And unless any of my colleagues have any questions to add, those were my questions around the policies. Thank you for all of the work.
No problem, thank you.
Commissioner Jewett next.
With that being said, on the Whistleblower Act on page 341, if somebody was to file a written complaint, it says mail it to Nate Elger. But if it was against Nate, where would they mail that to?
They could mail it to me.
But how would they know?
So I could put that in there.
Okay.
But how would they know that?
Yes, right, I will make sure.
So the
that that's-
letter's supposed
right.
to go to a specific person. Can you
Right.
change the language? Thank you, Mr. Jewett. Can you change the language to reflect to the people on the committee so that it's going, right, it can't get stopped the first place it goes?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And then the other question or comment I have, I guess, on the bottom of each one of these pages, it says amended or revised, and we see all the old dates. Will that be changed once approved?
Right, I didn't put the new dates down because they haven't been approved yet, so I
Right.
didn't
Okay, I
put the
just
new
wanna
date
make
on
sure.
there, so, yeah.
Okay. All right.
Hi. You're
I'm
all set?
done.
Commissioner Hundley.
So again, thank you for the additional 2 weeks. And after reading the whole, the 200 pages, I basically have one, I think, find and replace, and I could even be wrong. So
Okay.
on page 339 is a place where you can see it in the whistleblower policy, under the guidelines on F, to outline measures to protect disclosing employees against retaliation or recriminatory action from within the company. Company shows up in a bunch of places, and
It's county,
yeah.
yes.
I mean, that was as trivial as that was,
Okay.
so, yeah. Otherwise, thank you again for all the policies. It's great.
Mr. Bott.
If I could, we were reviewing some of the policies as well, specific to payroll processing, and due to time constraints, wasn't Donna's fault or Nate's, we have a few that we would like to sit down with them and bring back. So you have said that these will be changed as needed. We just didn't have time to, Donna was available, but due to the time it took the last week to get the audit out, we were not able to do that. There are 4, I can give you the 4, but I didn't want you to be surprised if you see in your next packet, some of these would be possibly changing.
How many pages are we talking, Dean, just so I can plan?
Well, I'll list
For
the
my
4.
reading.
I'll list the 4. It's the hours of work policy on page 259, the introduction to employment policy on page 261. And just to give you an example, that one's a minor change. It references that we have 26 pays. There are some years where we have 27, so I think we should clarify that. The other one is 273, paid time off policy. Just a little bit of concern with how the personal leave banks are handled. And then on page 307, salary basis for exempt employees. But Nate and Donna were available. My staff, due to our timing the last week, filing our audit with the state, we just weren't available to sit down with them. So have no issue with you approving all of them, but I do want you to know that there may be these four coming back with some slight changes.
And I have read those, the changes, and I'm totally fine with them. So I have reviewed their suggestions.
All right, I have Commissioner Lapointe
I just
next.
have one comment or one question, since Commissioner Drew brought up on 341, where you have the name Nate Elger in there. Usually in policies, you don't put names in because names
Position.
Right,
change.
because they changed. Well, I figured Nate's going to be here forever, so I,
I guess, are there other names in the term?
no, basically, it says HR director.
By title.
Yeah. Yes, by
Okay,
title.
it should be
Yes,
by-
yeah,
By title, I would think.
yes.
Because he's going to get real cocky thinking he's here forever. Names in the policy.
And maybe it should be.
I'm hoping by then we update them again, and they're not 20 years old anymore, so.
If you do put administrator, you might mark it confidential because his staff is one that opens
Is
general
right.
mail.
Yes.
And to Dean's point about minor changes that the board can expect, I know Mr. Klaus, Mr. Jewett, and I have been diligently working away at our ethics policy. There is an updated version of that we've worked with you, but we are still kind of coming to a conclusion on a final recommendation. So just to clarify that for folks, this is sort of like a stopgap until we get there, and it's better than what was there before.
Okay. Any other commissioner comments or questions? Are we ready to vote? All in-
Chairman?
Yeah.
Can I get a clarification on how we're voting now? You've
We're
got a
voting
whole
to
bunch
pass
of.
them all.
Okay,
And then we had the friendly amendment that was that the policy will be updated to include the specific benefits available for
Employee assistance program.
employee assistance program.
and then all the other changes are just,
And all the changes are as is. And then,
you direct staff to make additional
yeah,
changes
and staff will
bring
be,
it back?
staff will be bringing
Okay.
stuff back as we go. Okay, is everybody clear? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries.
Thank you.
Next item is item 11A, Area Agency on Aging Appointment, page 349. This was perceived conflict of interest by Commissioner Kafia, sent to you. I did have a letter of interest about this appointment, but I wanted to bring it to this board and see if any commissioners were interested in that appointment before we go into that. But Commissioner Kafia, did you have any remarks? Okay.
I mean, the email speaks for itself,
Yep.
and I was in regular contact with civil counsel to just figure out what was the appropriate action to take in this situation, and I feel solid about doing something that keeps me
Yep.
completely clear of perceived conflict.
Yeah, so I guess for the benefit of the public that doesn't have the packet in front of them, Commissioner Kafia's husband has taken employment with this agency where she was appointed to represent this board, and she doesn't want to have a perceived conflict of interest. So,
He finished his master's degree and got a job.
So-
And I shouldn't have anything to do with
Yeah.
the agency that is his boss.
So by our board rules, this is an appointment that is recommended by the chair and then approved by a vote of the commission. Would any commissioners be interested? Do you know when they meet off the top of your head?
It's every other month. They are off till, I want to say, September. So they're meeting in February, a snowstorm put the kibosh on. They met in April, they've met in June. So I believe it's Thursday mornings every other month. But you're off for the summer, so.
Okay. And this is kind of like the Northern Lakes appointment where a commissioner can represent us or we can appoint someone. In the past, we've done that with this one, but I wanted to open it up. Any volunteers for an extra appointment?
I will just mention, since you asked about appointments, that in a conversation with Heidi Gustine, who is currently the deputy executive director, but is incoming as Mr. Schluter is retiring, she specifically mentioned to me that she was very interested in potentially having Mr. Hansen come back and fill the remainder of his term. You had appointed me in his stead, but so just so you're aware that was expressed by the incoming executive director.
Okay. Well, I'll read to you the letter of interest I had. Dear Mr. Henschel, thank you for the opportunity to express. This is the person that had mentioned to me, and I said, well, send me a letter. And so they sent, thank you for the opportunity to express my interest in the opening on Area Agency on Aging. My interest lies with aging citizens of our great community because so many of them have become friends. I see how their lives are impacted with day-to-day challenges and daily activities. I have personal experience in caring for aging citizens, with caring for my grandfather when we moved him from Florida to Traverse City. I cared for my mother through her battle with breast cancer until her passing. In the last few months, I have cared for an elderly friend. I also have an organized group that senior citizens attend monthly, hear their battles and their concerns and their loving stories. My degree is a BA in Organizational Communication from Western Michigan University. My background was in pharmaceutical sales as a diabetes specialist, so I'm well acquainted with how that and other illnesses affect our aging citizens. Most recently, I am a district event coordinator and have plenty of programs and events in which aging citizens attend. I help with the special attention and needs required to accommodate them. I believe I'm a qualified candidate for this position, and thank you for your consideration. Sincerely, Heather Cerrone. So I've spoken with this person. I knew her mother before she passed, and just kind of a distant acquaintance, kind of watched as she cared for her mother, and I thought she'd be a great person to represent us. So I'll make that recommendation that we appoint Heather Cerrone to represent us, and I move that this board approve that recommendation.
Support.
Okay, moved by Henschel, supported by Klaus. Any discussion?
Second.
Oh, you already got us.
Questions, discussion?
I mean, the letter's good and lovely. I don't know if we should have, stuff in front of us or a resume or what, the appropriate due diligence or whatever, but otherwise it seems okay. What do we? I'll throw that question out there as far as.
Well, this is an appointment by the chair, and I was going to send this letter out, but it was too late to get in the packet.
Okay.
I'm certainly looking forward to it if you want a copy of it, but if this was a board appointment, certainly I
Right. Okay.
would follow that process, but
Fair enough.
it is, kind of a shortcut because it's a chair appointment and a board approval, but it's up to you guys how you want to handle it.
Hearing none.
Okay. All right. Any further discussion on the motion? Okay. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. We are on to second public comment. Please step right up to the podium, give your name and your address.
My name is David Core.
Go right ahead.
I called and talked to, I think, one of you folks. I think I guys got switched to you. What transpired was, and this is pretty incredible. You mentioned your husband was a graduate student, so you know how much that is dedicated to that. I was working on my second master's degree. I've been sober now for 9 years, and I had a gentleman call 911 and say I ran 7 people off the road and hit 2 mailboxes. I have 0 damage to my vehicle, had 0 damage to my vehicle, no other 911 calls. The officer said they smelled marijuana in my car. At the time, I was a substance abuse counselor for Houghton Lake Alternative Ed. They searched my vehicle, found no marijuana, found nothing, obviously. But what it did to my career, after 76 master's credits, I had to take 24 for my substance abuse master's at Western Michigan right here at the University Center. And I also had to take for my LLPC another 60, but I was 52 credits into that with 5,500 hours of supervised work in the field for substance abuse. The problem that came up was I take Suboxone for opiate addiction, and I was driving on it, and the malicious phone call, I was on my way in the vehicle, had my medication with me going to my mom's, so I was going to be staying there. And the officer saw that, and I felt immediately stigmatized by that, just for having my medication, for overcoming my opioid addiction, so I could go to school and help others that suffer with that crisis that we're having, and all you folks probably know well, aware of the opioid crisis. I could have been a statistic. Instead, I changed my ways and I wanted to help others. Instead, I was charged with a DUI. Blood was drawn from me. They found only my medication and 1 nanogram, supposedly, but then when it was tested independently, that wasn't even in there. So there's a lot of questions here. In the meantime, I haven't been able to obviously work or go pursue my degree. I'm $200,000 in debt to student loans. And I can't go look for a job when I have, well, is that time up?
Your time is up. I'll be glad to talk to you afterwards if you'd like to talk some more.
All right.
Thank you very much. Anyone else for public comment today?
Hi, I'm Chris Kramer. Nate, don't get nervous. I had a chance to talk to, in regard to Gordy's question about the Area Agency on Aging report. I did have a chance to go up and talk to Bob Schluter. Usually we have, for many years now, we've had those 2 reports sent in and have the Commission on Aging director respond to it and make a recommendation because they are the most familiar with that report. He is more than happy to come in and either make a presentation regarding the whole report, just answer the questions on that funding portion for all of you, or just have Gordy call him. So he would be available to come to the next meeting if you so desire, and if not, any individuals or Gordy specifically can call him and he'll explain that. He explained it to me, but it is a little complicated. There's a lot of ins and outs. And so anyway, I just thought I'd offer that up to you guys, and you can decide whether or not you want him at the next meeting, and I will let him know, or just call him individually. So just
Thanks,
wanted to
Grace.
let you know that. Thanks.
All right, so if any commissioners would like him to come and give his report, just let staff know, and we'll see if we can get that arranged.
My only interest is in the contribution from Grand Traverse, so I'll take you up on the offer, give him a call, and just understand the funding mechanism is what I'm curious about.
Okay. Anybody else for public comment at this time? Seeing none, we'll move on to commissioner and department reports. Any staff have any department reports?
No.
Notices are next.
Yep.
Then you can run through this. Okay. Any commissioners have a report? I can kind of give mine. I'll just give a kind of highlights. Parks Department's working on a survey. An email did go out to all commissioners about what I felt was a questionable order of business, which was a special meeting where a third of the Parks Commission couldn't make it, and then a minority of that group made a decision to spend $22,000. It was a minority of the whole commission at a special meeting, and so I had intended to bring it before this commission to see if we wanted to discuss it. That ended up working itself out. The contractor that they had agreed to contract with removed themselves from the situation, so we'll take it back to the full Parks Board and have discussions on that before proceeding. Other than that, the Parks is working on a survey. We've got a number of improvements suggested, kind of visionary type, high-level suggestions that was contracted. The commission voted last year to pay $8,000 to a firm that does those kind of things. It came back with a list of, I think it's about 12 improvements, so I asked that a survey be available to the public to help prioritize those. That survey will be coming out in the coming weeks. Airport Commission has agreed to a study for the solar panel idea at the airport. As I've said before, the airport's not interested in owning solar panels, they're interested in renting out the land there for solar use. So they have agreed to pay, it was quite a bit of money, so like around $80,000, I think, for a study 2/3 of which will be reimbursed by the FAA, but basically to look at the feasibility and, a little more specifics on how that would work and what it would take to put solar panels at the airport. And another thing is HR did put out a memo a few months ago about this, but yesterday, some scammer went on the county website and found my information and sent 2 emails to the finance department and HR, and supposedly from me asking to change direct deposit information to a different financial institution. Our staff's right on top of that. They called me immediately to verify, and I told them, no, that's definitely not me. So just be aware that that's out there going on, and our staff is on top of that, and I commend our HR department for doing a great job with that. Commissioner
I
LaPointe?
just have a question. I thought I had heard this separately, that if they were to install solar panels, it would be by a third party, and they would just they'd come up with some agreement. So they would not invest in the infrastructure whatsoever. Wouldn't it be upon the third party's responsibility to determine the feasibility of installing that versus the airport? I know if the company would want to do their own feasibility study.
Yeah.
So I'm surprised that they're taking it on before.
Yeah. Well, because of the nature of it, one of the goals in the current study is just to get the release from the FAA allowing the use, because right now it's designated as aeronautical use. So it would move from an aeronautical use to an aeronautical purpose, non-aeronautical use. So before another company can come in and say, I want to do this, the airport wants to kind of get it cleared through the federal government, because it's kind of a specialty situation because of that. Mr. Close?
Did you say $80,000 for the study?
Yeah.
So-
In that neighborhood, I can't remember the exact
Right.
figure.
So when the solar panels go in, they not only have to recoup the cost of putting in solar panels, they've got another $80,000.
I will make that point.
Recoup.
Okay. I'll make that point, that is a number that's part of this. Any other commission reports?
Just a note with Beta, I'm on the Beta board, but we did revise our schedule again, which that is in the packet and everything. Our meeting times have changed, and with Beta, we are still currently, I'm on an ad hoc committee with them looking at the possibility of buying some property and building one central location instead of having it scattered out. So that's the biggest report I have, still in the works on that.
Okay. Anything else?
I want to make a note on notices. It's unlikely at this point that the DDA will be presenting on the 24th. My understanding, not a conversation I had, but Mr. Forsyth had with Mr. Renzi, she may not be able to make that meeting. So we are still hoping to have that, but we may not.
But the airport will be here.
The airport will be here on the 24th, but we doubled up on that date. That may not happen.
Question for Mr. Alger on the complete count committee for the census. Where are we at with convening that first?
I spoke with Mr. Springsteen of the Census Bureau late last week, apprised him of our progress, and it looks like the first part of August or mid-August for a training.
Okay.
Every township and village or municipality has joined our committee.
Great.
And has expressed interest in participating. We are currently in the process of identifying nonprofits and other organizations that have contact with specific populations to help out as well. I constructed a letter and sent it out to those type of organizations. I'm hoping to hear back.
So we'll probably have our first meeting in August, it sounds
Yes.
like?
Yeah.
Okay. And just from the city, from my district, Peninsula Township canceled their second meeting of the month, so I got halfway there and turned around and went home. But I did attend the city in June, and I guess I just want to note and thank Commissioner Howard, who is now stepping down as a city representative now that she's taken the Tattle Library Director appointment. So thanks for her service.
Great. All right. Anything else under notices? We have airport governance meeting schedule. Is that on the website now? What was that item?
I think.
The
Yes,
ad
it is.
hoc.
Thank you, Chris. Okay, so that is on the county website under the calendar. So if anyone has interest in the airport governance And that is a committee of the airport, and we're looking at different governance models. So the public is welcome to attend. They will validate your parking. So that schedule is on the calendar. Beta revised meeting schedule is on the calendar as well. And so we've, July 24th, we have a study session. The airport will be presenting their obstacle avoidance plan, and the public is welcome to attend. It'll be right here, and it'll be a presentation, and then we'll also have an opportunity for the public to ask questions about that plan at that time. And we'll also have public comment, so if you have any comments about anything to do with the airport or county business, you'll be welcome to express those as well. The MAC, Michigan Association of Counties Annual Conference, is August 18th through 20th. It's right here in Grand Traverse County at the Grand Traverse Resort. They've asked me to say a few words at the beginning as the chair of the county, so if you have any suggestions, what to say in 2 minutes about our county to all the counties of the state. And also, any commissioners that are planning to attend that, please let Chris Kramer and admin know so she can get your registration so that you can attend that. I don't think we'll be needing lodging because it's right here in our county, but talk to Chris about attending that, and I encourage all of you to attend. Did I miss anything? Anything else? All right, no closed session. We're at adjournment. We are adjourned.
This is